Hey there, welcome to today's episode. And as you can see, we are going to look at my submission for the Conductor Williams Ears Sample Flip Beat Challenge number 3. If you want to take part in this, by the way, just go over and sign up to his Union Plus membership. Already a really big growing community. And I'm not affiliated, I don't get anything for saying this. I just signed up myself. You pay $20 a month, or you can, get the samples to flip and just be part of what is, a pretty good community over there. Here is my submission, started on Koala. And at the end of the video, I'll skip over, just show you the Ableton project as well, because it's started as a seed of an idea here, and then I finished it off inside of Ableton. We were given 4 tracks. No real rules to these things, so if you want to take a piece out of all of the tracks, mash it all together, you can do that. I chose just the 1 track. I was kind of short on time. I missed out on the first 2 months, but I really want to take part this month, and I'm looking forward to trying to carve out a little bit more space next month for my submission, but let's see what happens. I'm not going to play you all the other tracks, but of course I'm going to play you a bit of the sample that I chose, so you know how I flipped this thing. This to me has got a kind of Godfather-esque movie soundtrack feel to it, kind of 60s, 70s vibe. Take a listen, we'll just skip through. And you get the idea, some kind of, repetition as the song structure goes through. You'll notice it's got like a bit of a slow plodding tempo at times, and then at other times it kind of speeds up and gets a little bit more lively. I chose from around this section here. I'm pretty sure this is where I chopped up. And I wasn't looking to take huge long pieces, wasn't looking for any loops in particular, just took that section in there, chopped that up using Koala. And then with the slices here, if we take a look at some of these. You can hear that broken down and slowed down by what I think is -4 semitones. So once I got the chops together and started playing around with those, put some drums in, created just a very, very simple idea. 3 sequences, so 3 sections. The first one here is the introduction, so it's how the beat begins, how it builds up, and I wanted it to have something that had a bit of tension to it, and it didn't really need to be increasing in volume, but it needed to be something that sounded like the beginning of something. So just like an introduction where it kind of builds to move over into the next section. So let's take a listen to that. And because I kept the sample chops kind of short and there's these kind of little kind of choppy moments, feels a little bit like kind of an alarm or something, like something building. And then of course that is the build up to the main section. And then finally, because it was going to be around 2 minutes, to keep it interesting for the audience, I put in another breakdown section. Let's just mute the drums out. It's an abstract concept, which is, what a lot of people do with their chops anyway. That's kind of my style as well. I'm not looking for loops. I'm not trying to time stretch. I'm not trying to find a rhythm that's already there. I'm just looking for noises that I can chop together. And with these particular sample chops, there is a bass line to this, but it just kind of worked to give a rhythm. So let's just listen to the main section without any drums here. And I'm using that bass line kind of bouncing around underneath to just drive that. Just worked out really nicely. And then the same here, let's just listen without the drums in the way. You can hear there is a little light snare drum or something in there, just building that rhythm, but it wasn't chopped like that deliberately, I didn't pick out where the snare drum was. It was basically once I got the chops and I was moving them around and shifting it, just kind of happened to work out that way. And then the final bit where we've got our breakdown section without any drums. And if we take a look at the sequences themselves, I think, yeah, most of it, 2 bars, got 4 bars for the main section, and a bar just for like build-up intro part. So that was the main seed of an idea, built inside a Koala Sampler. Could have done that on my MPC, could have done it on the SP. Just happened to be that on this particular day I was using Koala. I exported this out as an Ableton set, and if we jump over to Ableton now, we can take a look at how I kind of flesh this thing out. Okay, here we are inside of Ableton, where we can take a look at the final product. Simple layout, very, very basic stuff. Obviously the Koala Sampler sequences were about 2 bars to 4 bars long. Just brought those over as an Ableton live set. Everything up until this static vinyl track here was all the Koala pieces, just rearranged obviously inside of Ableton. And then everything below are just some little effects and stuff that we'll talk about as we go through. We start off with the very basic intro. Nothing has really changed since Koala. I have brought in a vocal, so there is a little intro vocal that was from an old horoscope record. That's why I called the track Zodiac, and it's somebody just reading horoscopes, basically just for Libra as well. It's a really weird record. I wanted that vocal to have a little bit of space on its own, so with the sample slices, they have been grouped up inside of Ableton. Same with my drums, I do group things anyway because it makes your mixing a little bit easier, but on the slices, I've applied a low pass filter to all of them so that I can put this like fade in of the sample. So between bar 1 and say bar 8, if we zoom in a little bit more here, we've basically got this like slope coming all the way up, which means that the sample slices start off muffled and subdued, and they get louder and clearer obviously as like the, the high end kicks in. Gives the vocal a little bit of space at the beginning, but also adds to the feeling of like something driving and moving forward, which is what the intro is about. It's kind of this like emergency alarm kind of sound, almost lets things build up gradually, and just helps, yeah, with that kind of feeling of movement. I want the track feeling like it's leading you somewhere. So let's take a quick listen to that.
I said that Venus not only endows those born under Libra with physical beauty, but also gives you a natural and spontaneous appreciation.
And so that, yeah, that is our intro, our build up. Just before we go into the next section, there's a couple of little changes. Just chopped out some of the audio, so we're removing some of the drums, a couple of other bits. And the reason for that is to just add a moment of space before we switch scenes. Just helps with like the impact. And the other thing that helps with that is if we look at this rise and fall effect, I have a cymbal transition effect that has a small riser to it and then like a crash. And that gives us a little riser to kind of build the tension, and then a crash as the next section begins. So you can see, hopefully anyway, where the transient is like in the middle here. I think it just moves between the scenes easier and gives that next scene a little bit of punch, a little bit of oomph as it like kicks in. So nothing really else to report there. We go into the first verse, which I played you before. Nothing has really changed. I'll play you just a little piece of that. Real simple stuff. When we reach the next section, which is like the breakdown, nothing really changes again. I didn't really do too much here. It just basically goes from one section to the next. Little crash cymbal just to help move it along a little bit, but nothing really changes. Nice little breakdown. Just again to add interest, make it so that when the listeners, got like 2 minutes worth of audio, we're not just listening to the same thing on repeat the whole time. Towards the end, another little chop out of part of the drums so that there's a moment before it goes back into a repetition of the first verse. And that's all we're getting here. We got our first verse, our main section. We just get a repetition of that here. The only difference is now is we've got this little space noise, just again, a little moment, something to tickle the ears. And then a little breakdown part here, which you'll hear. Let's just play that out.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
I don't have any official tag. It's the first time I've used that. Not really sure about tags. Sometimes I think they're kind of cool and sometimes they just get a bit repetitive. But I like that little moment. And because this was a beat battle and we were just messing around, I thought it'd be fun to just drop a little nervous thing in there. And then continuation, of course, of the first verse. Nothing really else is going on. As we get to this kind of little breakdown moment before the final like verse, another removal of some audio. So just chopping out to make some space. As that happens, I've got this little like breath effect noise that kicks in. I also wanted this like siren noise for some reason. Don't ask me why, but it just kind of appealed to me to have like a siren coming in. Same crash cymbal, but you can hear it just kind of moves us over from this first verse into this breakdown section.
It follows, therefore, that most Librans are drawn to the arts, and many of you, in fact, gravitate to work that is connected with the arts, or creative work in some way.
We've got a repetition of our intro, and the only difference being here is that I've used a low pass filter, so rather than it fading in, we are fading out, and I want that so that, one, we're again clearing room for the vocal sample that I've chosen, this little horoscope section. I want that to have a little bit of a moment on its own. But before we reach the kind of climax, this final verse, I wanted everything to kind of just fade out a little bit, again, for the impact as it all kind of kicks back in. When we get to the final verse, to make it interesting and just more detailed, cracked out the turntable and the record player. I've been a DJ for a long time, so wanted to do some scratching, but I didn't want to do the super technical stuff. So we're not doing crabs and flares and all that kind of fancy stuff. We're just keeping it real simple. I think DJ Premier's got the right idea when it comes to like the hip hop production stuff. So I've kind of emulated that kind of style where we just got a, couple of vocal phrases, scratch them in a really simple way, just real basic kind of baby scratching, nothing too complicated, but it gives like an impact to this final verse and just again makes it like interesting.
Gravitate to work that is connected with the arts, or creative work in some way.
You can hear there's an echo delay on the final phrase, the final word, and the end part is a repetition of the breakdown section, only without any drums. Just plays over and over. Once it was bounced down, mixed, mastered, and all that kind of stuff, I could put the fade in the audio file, so it's not here inside of Ableton, but this just basically plays out. And on the final version, yeah, that has just like a nice soft fade out to it. So that is the basic structure for this. I made one mistake when I was actually submitting the beat, and that was that I had a couple of versions that I'd mastered out and I actually submitted the wrong one. So the version that ended up on the beat contest was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but there was a slightly nicer mastered version. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll come back next month and see what I can do there. For those that are super interested, on the drums, a little bit of compression. I use this Wave Observer, which is a third-party plugin. The rest of the time, I'm quite happy with like Ableton stock plugins. A little bit of reverb on the drums. I like putting them into the kind of the same space, makes them feel a little bit more live. A little bit of bit reduction, a little bit of distortion, and a little bit of cutoff of the high end. The big reason for that will probably be because when I put the drums in, if they don't feel like they match the sample, like the sample slices, like if they're really shiny and the drums are really dull, or vice versa, I like to even it out. So we've got a few things going on there, nothing complicated. Slices, a little bit of a boost to the low end because it's got its own natural bass line. The width, you'll notice, has been brought right down, not completely mono, but the sample was panned pretty hard to one direction. I think maybe to like the left hand side. I've reduced that. The auto filter here is doing the fade in and fade out for our little sections. The effects probably don't have anything. On some of the individual effects, maybe I've got like a delay, like on this breath effect, there's a little delay. And the scratches, I took a bunch of the low end out just because of the turntable rumble and they were just a little bit thuddy. And yeah, put a little hybrid reverb to just glue the scratches again together into the same space. Vocals will be similar story. Maybe on the individual vocals, they've got some stuff. Little compression going on because that vocal sample was quiet in places. So I'm using compression to kind of bring that up a little bit in places. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So that covers it, I think, for today's episode. I just wanted to do this beat breakdown, one for myself because it's useful to have this. I want to try and submit every month when I can, as long as I've got time to do so. And I think it's good to be able to look back on what you did before, where you kind of made mistakes, what you could do better. The other reason, of course, is for other Patreon members who are interested in this kind of thing. It's not like I'm the winner or mine was the best beat, but I think it's just, you might find this process interesting. And also for just, my general YouTube followers. One, I want to, help promote Conductor Williams because I think the Patreon that he's got over there is really good. I've got my own, of course, which I should probably be promoting more. But it is one of those things that I think the community he's building over there is like really, really good. And being able to take part in this is just, yeah, it's like kind of super fun. So I'm recording this for everyone really, but myself mainly. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.